He borrowed money from my parents promising to return it with respect, but when his business grew, he mocked me for marrying into his wealth. God, I thought I was being smart. God, I actually thought I was being clever. My parents had just written another check to Marcus. $15,000 this time, for the expansion, he said, that charming smile lighting his face as he shook my dad's hand. I promise Mr. Chen, we'll see every penny back with interest. Daughter married a man who keeps his word. Mom squeezed my hand under the dinner table. She was so proud, they both were. That was 3 months before I destroyed everything. See, Marcus wasn't always successful. When we met 5 years ago, he was this struggling contractor with big dreams and empty pockets. I was working at the bank, making decent money, stable job, nothing glamorous, but I could pay my bills and him when his truck broke down or when clients didn't pay on time. My parents loved him. Loved his work ethic, his respect, how he'd stand when Mom entered the room and always insisted on paying for dinner, even when I knew his account was running on fumes. When he asked for their blessing to marry me, Dad actually cried. The business loan request started small. $2,000 for better equipment. $5,000 for a work truck. My parents didn't hesitate. They'd scraped together their savings from running their small restaurant for 30 years, and they believed in Marcus, in us. He's gonna take care of, Mom would say in Mandarin, thinking Marcus couldn't understand. A good man who works hard. But success changed him. Or maybe it revealed who he really was. The company grew. Marcus landed 3 major contracts. Suddenly he was driving a BM, wearing expensive watches, talking about scaling and market positioning. He hired an assistant, Jennifer, fresh out of college with legs that went on for days and a laugh that made men stumble over themselves. I should have seen it coming. The first time he rolled his eyes when I mentioned my job, I brushed it off. When he started forgetting his wallet when we went out with my friends, I made excuses. When he moved his office to the expensive side of town and I felt underdressed visiting him there, I told I was being insecure. But the night of his company's first anniversary party, wearing a dress I'd saved 3 paychecks to afford, watching him introduce me to his wealthy clients as my wife, with this almost apologetic tone, something cracked inside me. She works at First National, he'd say, like he was admitting I had a contagious disease. David Morrison was there that night, tall, silver-haired, confident in that quiet way that old money produces. He owned half the commercial properties downtown, including the building where Marcus leased his fancy office. Banking, David said when Marcus mentioned my job, his voice warm with genuine interest. That's impressive. Must take real skill to navigate today's financial landscape. Actually laughed. She just processes loan applications. The embarrassment burned through me like acid, but David didn't miss the backbone of the industry, he said, looking right at me. I'd love to hear perspective on the local market sometime. Marcus had already moved on, schmoozing with potential clients, leaving me standing there with this successful, attractive man who was looking at me like I mattered. That should have been it. A moment of connection, maybe a boost to my ego, then home to my husband who used to think I hung the moon. But David texted me the next day, professional at first. Market insights, economic discussions. He was brilliant, and he made me feel brilliant too. For the first time in months, someone in my opinion valued my thoughts. Marcus barely looked from his phone when I got home anymore. The text with David shifted gradually, more personal, longer conversations. He'd ask about my day, remember details about my work struggles, send me articles he thought I'd find interesting. Husband's lucky to have someone so insightful. He wrote one evening. I stared at that message for 20 minutes before responding. He doesn't see it that way anymore. That split everything wide open. David suggested coffee. Just coffee, professional networking, he said. I told the same thing as I changed outfits 3 times that morning. The coffee turned into lunch the next week. Lunch became dinner the following month. Always public places, always proper, but the way he looked at me, like I was fascinating, valuable, worth listening to. I started deleting our text conversations. Started making excuses to Marcus about working late. Started lying. The night everything changed, Marcus came home from work complaining about having to pay my parents back their latest loan. $5,000 for what? He grumbled, tossing his keys on the counter. I'm already carrying this whole household. Now I have to budget around parents' timeline too. They help build business, I said quietly. And I'm grateful, but Christ, Sarah. It's like having a mortgage to family. Maybe if he actually contributed something meaningful to this marriage, I wouldn't have needed their money in the first place. He said it so casually. Like my years of supporting him, my steady income that kept us afloat when clients stiffed him, my parents' faith in our future, like none of it mattered. Like I was just some financial burden he'd inherited. I walked out, drove to the hotel bar downtown where I knew David would be. He was in town for business, had mentioned it in passing during our last lunch. He looked surprised to see me, concerned when he saw my face. What happened? And I told him everything. The humiliation, the loneliness, how my own husband made me feel like I was worth nothing. David listened, really listened. When I started crying, he handed me his handkerchief without making it weird. Deserve better, he said simply. When he walked me to my car, I him. When he me back, I didn't stop him. When he suggested we continue this conversation in his room, I said yes. I told it was just one night. Just one moment of feeling valued, desired, important. Marcus would never know. I'd get it out of my system and go back to my marriage stronger, more confident. I told a lot of things that night, but lies have a way of growing in the dark, and secrets have a way of demanding more secrets to survive. The first lie was telling Marcus I'd gone to Ashley's house that night. The second was deleting David's thank for last night text before Marcus could see it. The third was pretending nothing had changed when Marcus actually me goodbye the next morning for the first time in weeks. By the time I stopped counting, I was drowning in them. David left town the next day, but the text didn't stop. Neither did the guilt. I'd wake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, Marcus snoring beside me, replaying every moment of that night. The way David had looked at me like I was precious. The way his hands felt respectful even as we crossed every line I'd sworn I never would. I was disgusted with. I was also desperate to feel that way again. We're glowing, Mom said when I stopped by the restaurant that weekend. She was prepping vegetables for the lunch rush, her weathered hands moving with practiced precision. Marriage suits. The shame hit me like a physical Here was my mother, who'd worked 16-hour days to put me through college, who'd trusted her savings to the man I'd married, telling me I looked happy because I'd cheated on him. Just been sleeping better, I managed. Dad emerged from the kitchen, flower in his hair. Sarah, perfect timing. Marcus stopped by yesterday to update us on the business. Such a good boy, keeping us informed. He says the new contracts are going even better than expected. My stomach twisted. He was here. Brought us flowers. Mom beamed. Said he wanted to thank us properly for believing in him. We're so proud of the man. Chose. I excused to the bathroom, but when David texted me that afternoon asking how I was holding, I responded immediately. The affair didn't happen all at once. It was a slow bleed of tiny betrayals, each one making the next easier to justify. Coffee when he was in town became the highlight of my month. Late night phone calls became my escape from Marcus's increasing indifference. The hotel room became my sanctuary from a marriage that felt like slow suffocation. David made me feel alive again. Valuable. When he talked about his business dealing, asked for my input. When I mentioned problems at work, he helped me strategize solutions. When Marcus dismissed my opinions at dinner parties, David would text me later. Husbands, and if he doesn't see how brilliant are. I started dressing better. Taking care of. Marcus noticed. Look at, he said one evening, catching me checking my reflection before heading to what I told him was a work networking event. Finally making an effort. Finally. Like the years I'd supported him while he built his dream didn't count. Like the woman he'd fallen in love with had just been a placeholder, until he could afford someone worth his time. The networking event was dinner with David. We held hands across the table at a restaurant 3 towns over, talking about everything except the fact that I was married and he was helping me betray the most important relationships in my. I've been thinking, he said as we walked to our separate cars. There's a property I'm looking at in Charleston. Beautiful historic home, needs renovation work. I could use someone with financial insight to review the investment, but Charleston. A weekend away, the line I hadn't crossed yet. I can't, I whispered. I know, he said, but if changed mind. I changed my mind 3 days later when Marcus came home from a client dinner and casually mentioned that Jennifer, his assistant, had been incredibly helpful with the new project presentations. She has such fresh perspectives, he said, loosening his tie, really makes see things differently. The way he said it, the slight smile, the fact that he'd been working late with her 3 nights that week. I booked the Charleston trip that night. Marcus didn't even ask where I was going. Work conference, I'd said, and he just nodded, already scrolling through his phone. That weekend destroyed me. Not because it was sordid or dramatic, but because it was beautiful. David showed me a future I'd forgotten existed. We walked through the historic district, toured the property, talked about renovation possibilities like we were planning it together. He treated me like a partner and equal. When I suggested structural changes to maximize the investment return, he pulled out his phone and called his architect on the spot. Sarah Chen, he said into the phone, the financial analyst I told about. Yes, she's here with me now. Financial analyst, loan processor. Not my friend's wife. I was someone worth consulting, worth introducing professionally. That night, lying in the beautiful bed of our beautiful hotel room, I let imagine what it would be like to be with someone who saw my value. I came home Sunday night to find Marcus passed out on the couch, empty bottles scattered around him, his phone buzzing with what I assumed were work messages but didn't care enough to check. The guilt was crushing, but so was the loneliness. I started planning my exit strategy. Not from the marriage, I wasn't that far gone yet. From the affair. David was getting too attached, talking about future trips, mentioning how much happier I seemed. I needed to end it before someone got. I can't do this anymore, I told him during our next phone call. I understand, he said quietly. I've been selfish, asking to compromise values. But Sarah deserved to be happy, deserves someone who sees how remarkable are. I'm married. To someone who treats like an afterthought. He wasn't wrong. Marcus had missed our 5th wedding anniversary completely, claiming a last-minute client emergency. I'd eaten dinner alone at the restaurant where we'd had our first date, wearing the dress I'd bought specially, checking my phone every 5 minutes for texts that never came. He'd rolled in at midnight, smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. Did have a good evening, I'd asked. Long client dinner. Know how it is. I did know how it was. I was living how it was with someone else's husband in hotel rooms across the state. But I was about to learn that karma doesn't care about justifications. The discovery came in the most mundane way possible. I'd gotten careless. The burner phone I'd bought to text David had died, so I'd used my regular phone to send him a quick message about meeting for coffee. Nothing explicit, just same time tomorrow. I deleted immediately like always. But I'd forgotten about the backup feature Marcus had set on our shared iCloud account months ago for security purposes. He found the message while looking for a photo on my phone. Found the entire conversation thread that had somehow since despite my deletions. I came home from work Tuesday evening to find him sitting at our kitchen table, my phone in front of him, his face completely blank. Who is David Morrison? The world stopped. My purse slipped from my hand, contents scattering across the floor. Marcus, I can explain. 6 months of messages, Sarah. 6 months of can't wait to see, and thinking about last night, and planning trips I knew nothing about. His voice was eerily calm, quiet, the way he got when he was truly deeply furious. It's not what think. I think my wife has been having an affair with one of my business contacts. I think she's been lying to my face every day for half a year. I think she's been playing the victim in our marriage while planning hotel visits with another man. He stood, and I'd never seen him look at me with such complete disgust. How long, Marcus? How long? Since the anniversary party, he laughed. Actually laughed. The anniversary party where complained about how I introduced. Where made me feel like a monster for being proud of my success. We're already planning to cheat on me that night. Where no, it just happened. Nothing just happened, Sarah. Made choices. Every text, every lie, every time looked me in the eye and pretended to be my wife while we're planning to betray me. The word betray hit me like a, betrayed me too, I whispered. Change, made me feel. So decided to prove me right. He picked his keys heading for the door. Where going? To talk to parents. The floor disappeared beneath me. Marcus, no. Please, they don't need to know. They loan me money, Sarah. $53,000 over 2 years because they believed in our marriage. They trusted me to take care of their daughter. Don't think they deserve to know what kind of care I actually wanted. He was going to destroy everything. Not just us, everything. I'll end it, I pleaded. I'll never see him again. We can work through this. There is no this to work through. There's no us anymore. There's just the mess made and the people who are going to get cleaning it. The door slammed behind him. I called David. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I called my parents. Dad's cheerful voice, "Oh Sarah, we were just talking about," I hung. 20 minutes later my phone exploded with messages. "Mom, how could do this to us? We trusted him because we trusted in, Marcus just called me. Is it true? My sister. Mom is crying. How could be so selfish? I'll be staying at the hotel tonight. We'll talk lawyer tomorrow. David Marcus Morrison called me. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I sat on my kitchen floor surrounded by the contents of my spilled purse, reading message after message, watching my entire crumble in real time. The last text came from Mom. "Don't come to the restaurant. Father needs time." That's when I realized the true cost of what I'd done. It wasn't just my marriage I'd destroyed. It was everything. David disappeared first. His assistant called me the next morning. Mr. Morrison asked me to inform that he's reconsidering the Charleston investment. He won't be needing financial consulting services moving forward. Financial consulting services. Like I was some professional he'd hired instead of a married woman he'd been sleeping with for 6 months. The cowardice shouldn't have surprised me. Men who pursue married women rarely stick around for the aftermath. But I'd actually believed he cared about me. Believed his whispered promises about deserving better, about having a future together. I tried calling him. Number disconnected. I drove to his downtown office. "Mr. Morrison is traveling indefinitely," the receptionist said without making eye contact. "I can't provide any contact information." He'd vanished like our entire relationship had been a mirage. 6 months of texts, phone calls, hotel rooms, promises about how special I was gone. Apparently my value to him had been directly tied to my unavailability. Marcus, meanwhile, was methodically destroying my with the same precision he brought to his construction projects. The lawyer he hired was expensive, the kind who wore $1,000 suits and charged by the minute for phone calls. The kind my bank salary could never afford. Adultery is grounds for fault-based divorce in this state, my court-appointed attorney explained in his cramped office. Husband is seeking full division of marital assets, spousal support, and he's demanding assume responsibility for the business loans from parents. The loans were to him, not me, made during the marriage, signed as guarantor on 2 of them. Legally we're as responsible as he is, $53,000, plus interest, plus Marcus's legal fees if he won the fault claim. I don't have that kind of money. Then better hope parents are feeling forgiving. They weren't. I drove to the restaurant on a Tuesday morning, hoping to catch them during the slow period between breakfast and lunch. The parking lot was nearly empty, which should have been my first warning. Dad was mopping floors when I walked in. He looked, saw me, and his face closed off completely. "We're closed," he said. "Dad, please. I need to talk to." "Nothing to talk about." Made choices. Mom emerged from the kitchen, her eyes red-rimmed, aged 10 years in 2 days. "How could?" she whispered. "How could do this to us, to him? After everything we gave him, everything we believed. I know I messed, but, messed?" Dad slammed the mop bucket down. "Destroyed our family's honor. Made us look like fools. We vouched for that man because we trusted judgment. We gave him our savings because we believed in marriage. He changed, Dad. He wasn't the same person. So decided to become someone different too. Someone who lies and cheats and breaks promises." The disappointment in his voice was worse than screaming. Mom spoke quietly. "Marcus came to see us yesterday. He's going to pay back every penny with interest. He apologized for behavior. Can't imagine. He apologized for what did." The humiliation burned through me. Marcus, who dismissed my worth, who'd made me feel invisible in my own marriage, was now the honorable one in my parents' eyes. He said he tried to make the marriage work. Mom continued. Said he gave everything he could, but it wasn't enough, wanted more. "That's not how it happened." "Then tell us how it happened." Dad demanded. "Tell us why our daughter away a good marriage for some rich man who won't even return her phone calls." I couldn't. How to explain that their perfect son-in-law had slowly eroded self-worth? How to describe the loneliness of being married to someone who treated like an obligation? How to justify betraying everyone who trusted because we're too weak to either fix marriage or leave it honestly? I whispered. "We're selfish," Mom said. "Lonely is when husband works long hours to build a future for family. Selfish is when decide that's not good enough and go looking for excitement elsewhere." She handed me an envelope. "Marcus left this for." Inside was a check for $2,000 and a note for moving expenses. "I'll continue paying the rent through the end of the month. He's kicking me out. It's his apartment," Dad said. "His name on the lease. His money for the deposit. I've been living off his success for 2 years." Another truth I'd been ignoring. While I'd been resenting Marcus's financial growth, I'd been enjoying the benefits. The nice apartment, the better restaurants, the car he'd helped me finance. I'd contributed my bank salary, but he'd been carrying the majority of our expenses since his business took off. Where am I supposed to go? My parents exchanged looks. "Can't come home," Mom said quietly. "Not right now. The community knows. Mrs. Lee, the Wangs, everyone at church. They're all talking about how we raised a daughter who couldn't honor her marriage vows." The Chinese community in our small city was tight-knit. Gossip traveled fast and shame stuck forever. My parents' reputation, built over 30 years of hard work and community service, was destroyed because of my choices. "I have nowhere to go." "Should have thought of that before," Dad said. "I moved into a studio apartment above a laundromat on the wrong side of town. The kind of place college students rent when their parents them off. Thin walls, no air conditioning, neighbors who screamed at all hours. Work became. Marcus's company had done business with our bank. Everyone knew we were married. When the divorce papers became public record, the whisper started. I heard she cheated with that Morrison guy. Can't imagine. Her husband built that business from nothing. She always seemed so sweet too, never know with people." My supervisor called me into her office 3 weeks after the separation. "Sarah, I need to discuss work performance. There have been some concerns about judgment, particularly regarding client confidentiality and personal relationships." I never used client information inappropriately. David Morrison was a client of the bank, had access to his financial records, his business dealings, his personal information. The relationship raises serious ethical questions. I hadn't thought of that. Hadn't considered how my access to his banking information might look to regulators, to my employer, to anyone investigating the affair. I'm going to need to take some time off while we conduct an internal review. Paid suspension. Which became termination with cause. No reference, no severance, no future in banking in a town where everyone knew my story. The money ran out fast. Studio apartment rent, lawyer fees, groceries, car payments. I applied for job after job, but in a small city reputation matters. Word spread. Interviews went well until they ran background checks or called references. We've decided to go with another candidate. The position has been filled. We'll keep resume on file. I pawned my wedding ring, pawned my jewelry. Started applying for jobs outside my field, retail, restaurants, anything. Finally got hired at a big box store 30 minutes outside town where nobody knew me. Night shift, minimum wage, no benefits. I'd gone from a banking career to scanning barcodes for people who were my age and living the stable I'd thrown away. The divorce hearing was a nightmare. Marcus's lawyer painted me a cackling adulteress who'd used her position at the bank to a wealthy client. He had printouts of every text message, photos from the Charleston trip that David must have shared, credit card statements showing hotel charges. Honor, Chen systematically deceived her husband while taking advantage of the financial support he provided. She used intimate knowledge of Mr. Morrison's finances obtained through her employment to pursue an extramarital relationship. My lawyer tried to argue emotional alienation, but it fell flat. Marcus had witnesses, friends, family, business associates testifying to his devotion to our marriage, his respect for my parents, his efforts to include me in his success. I had no witnesses, no friends willing to testify that Marcus had changed, that he'd made me feel. Because the truth was, most of our friends had sided with him the moment they learned about the affair. The judgment was brutal. Fault-based divorce granted. I got nothing from the marital assets, no spousal support. Full responsibility for my parents' loans to Marcus's business, $53,000, at my retail job. Working 40 hours a week would take me over 3 years to pay off, if I never spent money on anything else. The judge's final words, Mrs. Chen, chose to marriage vows in a particularly calculated manner. Actions have consequences, and these are yours. Marcus left town 6 months after the divorce was final, sold his business for a massive profit and moved to Charlotte. I heard through the community grapevine that he'd gotten engaged to Jennifer, his former assistant. The woman I'd probably been right to worry about. The woman who'd been there all along while I was sneaking around with David Morrison. Turns out we'd both been cheating. The difference was, Marcus waited until after he destroyed me to make his move official. My parents still won't speak to me. 2 years later, I drive past their restaurant sometimes and see them through the window, older, sadder, still working those 16-hour days. But now they're working to rebuild savings I helped destroy, to repair a reputation my choices shattered. I send them money every month. $25, $50 if I've had overtime. Pathetic payments toward a debt I'll never be able to fully repay. The financial debt, sure, but more than that, the debt of having made them ashamed of the daughter they'd sacrificed everything to raise. David Morrison never contacted me again. I heard he married some socialite from Charleston about a year later. Beautiful wedding announcement in the society pages. She looked exactly like the kind of woman who belonged on his arm, polished, wealthy, available. I live alone in my studio apartment, work my retail shift, come home to instant ramen and silence. Sometimes I see couples in the store, fighting over what brand of cereal to buy or whose turn it is to take out the trash. Mundane married problems. I want to shake them and tell them how precious those problems are, how easily they can disappear when decide deserve something more exciting. The worst part isn't the poverty or the loneliness or even the shame. It's the knowledge that I destroyed something real for something that was never real at all. Marcus might have made me feel unimportant, but I was still important to someone. My parents might have worried about my modest income, but they were still proud of the I'd built. I owe people who actually loved me for a fantasy that evaporated the moment it became inconvenient. 3 years later, I still wake sometimes thinking I can fix it, thinking I can call my parents and explain, call Marcus and apologize, somehow undo the cascade of pain my selfishness created. But some betrayals don't get do-overs, some mistakes don't get forgiven, some choices echo forward through time, destroying not just future, but past, tainting every memory, every moment of love ever received. I tell I was young and lonely, but the truth is simpler and harder. I was willing to people who trusted me because I wanted something that belonged to someone else. The people who loved me were never the problem, I was.